So this is how artificial intelligence scores your interview. Content analysis. So AI is actually going to take the content of your responses and they're going to use something called NLP. N is in Nancy, L is in love, P is in Peter, NLP. It's NLP stands for natural language processing. Okay. And so basically what this is it is an artificial intelligence program or process. It's kind of a branch of artificial intelligence, and it allows computers to read, interpret, and analyze your human language. Angela has a language style. Becky has a language style. We as humans have different styles amongst us humans, but we also have a human style. And so analyzing the language is critically important whenever artificial intelligence is scoring your responses. Okay. The platform will transcribe everything you say, and then it's going to run algorithms against your language patterns to look for things like keywords and phrases that might be relevant to the competencies that the question was meant to be searching for. Sentence structure. Are you using complete sentences? Are you using partials? Are you jumping from place to place? Um, Also, it looks for a logical narrative, and we're going to touch on the SARB method here, but this is where your STAR and your SARB approaches to where you're really telling stories matters, because when it's doing a content analysis, it's looking for stories. Does it have a definite beginning? Does it have a definite middle? Does it have an end? Right. And so your SARB, where you're talking about your situation, your actions, your results, and your benefits, are going to win you scores here, because when you're telling that 60-second to 3 minute story, you're actually saying, well, here's a situation, here's what I did, here was the result, and here's the benefit. And so it will actually score you better because it has a logical narrative. Your language does. And it's also going to scan for filler. You guys that know and love me know I use the word fluff. When your resume is fluffy, when your story is fluff, when you're using all these buzzwords and you're not anchoring it with anything, you are going to be downgraded on your score because it recognizes that as well. Hedging your language, choppy sentences, shifting, rambling, all of those types of things. So being prepared matters. Telling structured stories matters. And being able to show off your transferable skills like problem solving, leadership, communication matters. Okay. So then there's another key with the content analysis. It's answering the question that's being asked. We have that with live interviews. People go off on tangent. They start telling stories. Story has nothing to do with the question that I asked. Right. So again, being prepared is important because then you can stay more focused on what type of story you're telling and not get sidetracked. Okay. So going off topic is a really big problem. Now, after content analysis, the AI scores for vocal delivery. Some platforms assess your tone, your pacing, your confidence. HireVue actually analyzes up to 25,000 data points based off of your vocal delivery, your tonality, being able to be up, down, excited, that type of thing. So all of that is really important. It's the dimensions of how well you communicate, how well you enunciate. And what it's trying to do is saying, okay, this person is going to fit into this type of thing, this type of cultural fit or roles. And maybe the way that you describe things shows that you're a problem solver, you're a great communicator, you're this, that, or the other. So it assesses those types of things as well. It also looks at your nonverbal cues. So are you making eye contact with the lens? Are you looking at it? How's your body language? How's your facial language? It takes all of those types of things into consideration. And then it does a competency scoring. Now, I have another slide for that because I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. But it does assess certain competencies based off of your responses. Spark Hire actually scores against competencies and personal qualities that I'm going to specifically dig into because with my analysis, a lot of these companies will dig into very similar ones. Okay. The STAR and SARB methods, you're going to be your best friend. So for those of you who don't have elevator pitches, you need to get them if you're going to participate in these. Situation, action, result, benefit. Get those elevator pitches ready, because that is going to be what wins you a lot of scores in the artificial intelligence one way, especially whenever it comes to things like, tell me about a time. Tell me about a time where you managed a difficult protocol deviation. Why are you looking for a new position? Tell me a little bit about yourself. Why did you leave your last role? All of these things that are you're going to be asked, you guys, whether it's by the bot or by a human, you're going to be asked. Have those elevator pitches ready to go so that you can very easily and confidently answer them. Okay. And then, of course, all of this, there is also a bias algorithm that kind of helps to eliminate some biases. I don't know that those are fully transparent, and I don't really know how good they are, but that is something that they claim to try to write in there. Okay. So the scoring in general, any questions before I dig into some of the competency scorings?
Mary just had a question. Is there any way to know the questions? I'm assuming in advance. I said they might give you visibility to the questions once you engage with the interview platform, but I'm sure each company will have different questions and each platform will operate differently in terms of delivery and visibility. And I echoed exactly what you just said, that I'd be prepared with elevator pitches for the
Yep.
most common interview questions so you can handle those odd off the wall questions on the spot, knowing you're already
Mhm.
prepared for the most basic things.
Yep, your elevator pitches and your in the pocket stories, which is directly related to that webinar podcast. And I'm sorry, the elevator pitch webinar I did, and then the podcast that we have. You guys, if you have those ready, and it really is, tell me about yourself. Why are you looking for a new role? Why did you leave your last role? If you've been out for a hot minute, why have you been out for a hot minute, right? And then of course your other questions, like tell me about a failure, an achievement, the certain a conflict. There are other things that I'm calling in the pocket stories. If you have all of those elevator pitches ready, that is 80% of your interview questions done, nailed. Because people care about your transferable skills. And that's what this competency piece is right here, and what gets such a large amount of scoring for most of the AI one-way interviews, right? Your top four competencies, they're assessing your communication, your execution, your comprehension, and by the way, your English proficiency. And I'm not talking about English as a second language, by the way. I'm talking about being coherent when you're telling your stories. A lot of people aren't. You guys, we interview people every day, and I'm like, wait, what? Start over. You're not answering my question. Just because English is your first or second language doesn't matter. It's how well you tell a story and how clear and concise you are at it. Okay. So let's look at a little bit. And by the way, some of these AI interview programs, they will score you on like 20 different competencies, but these are your big ones. So let's make sure all of your elevator pitches hit all of these. These are transferable skills. These show how human you are. And I think there's a little part of me that is a little gleeful that the bot cares about these, because these are going to be what gets you through the AI one-way interview, is showing how human you are, and being able to show how you interrelate with other humans is the key that it's scoring on these. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. And that's the reason why you see the person taking the shield off. You got to show you're human in an interview where there's no humans. Okay. I mean, you got to giggle a little bit about that, right? Because that is the point of today's webinar. Okay. So AI isn't assessing your ability to source data verify. AI isn't assessing your ability to put together a monitoring plan or to build a project management plan or to build a product development launch. It's not asking you those questions. And maybe they are asking you their question, but what it's scoring you against is your ability to communicate. It wants to know if you can convey ideas clearly, logically. Do you have a narrative? Does your story have a beginning, a middle, and an end? Are you contradicting yourself? Are you rambling? Did you get off topic? Right? So that's what it's wanting to know. Less to know about whether or not the way you built the project plan was correct, and more to do with how you conveyed the story. And then execution. Do you demonstrate that you do follow through? So in your stories, did you hold yourself accountable? Did you show a result? Did you show how the benefit was? Did you show that there was an execution problem? And this is where things like I did X and it resulted in Y is important whenever you're telling your stories. That's why SARB is so important. Here's a situation, here's what I did, here's a result, and here's the benefit. That's why it's so important, because a lot of times what people will do is they'll get very vague. Well, I'm pretty organized. I check my this, I check my that. Okay, well, why do I care about how you do it? I want to know what the results are, right? So that's why execution is so important. Comprehension. Did you answer the question that was asked? You guys, it's a big trap. A lot of people go off. They just go off the yellow brick road and they're wandering around in the forest somewhere and no one understands what they're talking about anymore. This happens with real interviewers. You cannot let it happen with AI because you will get scored punitively because of it. You've got to stay on topic. And you guys, it's easy. What you can do to begin with is just repeat the question that it's prompted you to answer. Okay, well, in terms of, and then you repeat the question. And then that way you're showing it, you're right on topic. And then you answer the darn question, you guys. You don't go off topic for it. And you make sure that you're very focused. I know that's hard for some, but that's why you got to practice your elevator pitches too, because then it's a lot less likely to deviate. And then your English proficiency. And we've already kind of touched on that before, but being clear, being able to articulate, having complete sentences. You guys, this is less to do with poor grammar and more to do with being able to tell a comprehensive and coherent story. Okay. Now, the personal qualities that are the top ones, and these are most likely to be scored, are your enthusiasm and motivation. So, introverts out there, you got to work up your energy for these types of interviews. Because if you're boring and you're really monotone, your score is going to suffer because of it. Okay. And the way you want to really look at it is, are you, and so maybe the best way to look at it is how much do you love your job? How much are you excited about your role in this company? Think about what it's going to be like to work there. Get that energy up because that's the enthusiasm you want to convey in these sessions because it's so critically important to your score. And this is where, and I mentioned this already, mid-career professionals, you get penalized quietly a lot of times because you give technically answered question. You technically answer the question perfectly, but you're just given the facts. And if it falls flat, then you're going to be penalized on the score there. Okay. So you can even pretend someone's on the other side nodding and smiling at you if you want to. But this is where your practice is so important. I call it smile and dial back from my whole business development days, but practicing your elevator pitches in front of a mirror smiling at yourself is a great way to get started because that enthusiasm is really, really important. And then motivation. This is very quiet, but it's about why you want this job, not just any job, you guys, but this job. And that's why every one of your elevator pitches have to bridge back to this job, this company, this team. Why do you care? They want to know because they care. They want to know that you've hand selected this opportunity. And that's why the motivation's got to be there. Okay. Generic answers that could apply to any company at all, you're going to be penalized, you guys. It's punitive.